Back in March, I talked about a court case in which Trump's attorneys argued that the administration had the right to discriminate against transgender individuals by citing research that actually directly contradicted what they were claiming, and the judge yelled at them, so it was all pretty funny. If you ignore the fact that actual lives are being negatively affected by these fucking numbskulls. A few months later, things have gotten even funnier, by which I mean more horrific. 2 weeks ago, human-shaped worm mecha RFK Jr. proudly published his MAHA report, a call to action that explores American children's declining health, backed by compelling data and long-term trends, culled from more than 500 cited studies. And what did this compelling data ultimately conclude was the problem? Well, everything RFK Jr. and his cronies hate, of course. Ultra-processed foods, chemicals, screens, too much dang healthcare. It's incredible that they found 500 studies to prove assertions like ADHD medications are being overprescribed in children, considering that doesn't appear to be true. So what happened? Did they take a page from the playbook used by the Trump attorneys who misrepresented studies to show the opposite of what they actually found? No. Well, I mean, yes, but also they straight made up fake studies that don't even exist. Notice a news outlet from the All Britain Journalism Institute found that at least 7 of the studies cited in the MAHA report do not exist. Changes in mental health and substance abuse among U.S. adolescents during the COVID-19 pandemic is cited with a non-functional link to the study's digital object identifier, while the citation claims that the study appeared in the 12th issue of the 176th edition of the journal JAMA Pediatrics. That issue did not include a study with that title. The supposed author told Notice she did not write any such paper. A section describing the corporate capture of media highlights 2 studies that it says are broadly illustrative of how a rise in direct-to-consumer drug advertisements has led to more prescriptions being written for ADHD medications and antidepressants for kids. The catch, neither of those studies is anywhere to be found. Direct-to-consumer advertising and the rise in ADHD medication use among children, and direct-to-consumer advertising of psychotropic medications for youth, a growing concern, don't appear in the table of contents for the journals listed in their citations. The lead author of one study said he never wrote it. The lead author of the other study also does not exist. Moving on, the study Overprescribing of Oral Corticosteroids for Children with Asthma used to support the report's assertion that 25 to 40% of mild cases of asthma are overprescribed does not exist. And again, the first author said he never wrote it. He told Notice that he has conducted similar research, but said that even if the MAHA report cited that study correctly, its conclusions are clearly an overgeneralization of the findings. Not only did they find several of these studies don't exist at all, they also found others were misrepresented, just like in the transgender discrimination case. In one section about mental health medication, which Kennedy has railed against for years, the report cites a review paper it claims shows that therapy alone is as or more effective than psychiatric medicine. But one of that paper's statisticians told Notice that conclusion doesn't make sense, given their study didn't even attempt to measure or compare therapy's effectiveness as a mental health treatment. We did not include psychotherapy in our review. We only compared the effectiveness of new generation antidepressants against each other and against placebo, Joanne McKenzie, a biostatistics professor at an Australian university, said in an email. There were several other misrepresentations amongst dozens of citations with more mundane errors like broken links, missing or incorrect authors, and wrong issue numbers. The New York Times followed up on Notice's report by talking to Dr. Ivan Oransky of Retraction Watch, who said the whole thing reeks of generative AI. Like, hey Grok, write me an entire report supporting my delusions with science, and also do it in Jar Jar voice. When asked to explain what was going on, a spokesperson for the Department of Health and Human Services dismissed all this as minor citation and formatting errors and refused to address the AI question, which I think means yes, that's exactly what happened. Next, USA Today, of all places, found another screwy citation. The MAHA report erroneously said an article on the impact of light from computer monitors was published in the journal Pediatrics when it wasn't, according to the study's author, Mariana Figueroa, a professor at Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. The report also cited Figueroa's research as evidence that electronic devices in children's bedrooms disrupted sleep onset. However, she said the study was on college students and researchers measured melatonin suppression, not sleep. This is obviously a giant clusterfuck of a clown show, an official government document that gives official guidelines for policies meant to protect children was likely just shat out by ChatGPT with absolutely no fact-checking. I actually agree with these lunatics on a few things. I don't think pharmaceutical companies should be allowed to advertise prescription drugs directly to consumers. I do think we should continue to research how extended screen time might affect children and adults when it comes to sleep, eye strain, and attention span. And hell, I've even made an entire video all about the very real scientific studies that show that ultra-processed foods are linked to poor health outcomes, like an increased risk of death and depression. But as with everything else in this stupid, shitty administration, the solutions they come up with are things that make everything worse. An administration that actually cared about these things would find the actual research, talk to the people who are studying these problems, and then get their input on the solutions. Instead, because they lump in a few common sense issues with a host of bullshit, they're forced to undermine all of it by making up data out of whole cloth. Not only does it end up casting doubt on all of these issues, but ultimately the federal government is now aiding the makers of these large language models in their campaign to make the general public doubt everything, including and especially scientific research. If the average person can no longer tell what's real from what's fake, then what's the point of science? Why strive for more knowledge when everything we've learned as a species up to this point is now up for debate? Oh, 1,000 studies show that vaccines do not and never have caused autism. Well, how do I know that that's real? How do I know you didn't just ask ChatGPT for a list of citations that support your point? And how can I even check these when all of the journals hide the research behind paywalls anyway? Unless you think that the Republicans are only using chatbots to make up science that will ultimately damage children and trans people, I'm sad to say that they're actually going to do the same bullshit to damage women. Last month, Republican Senator Josh Hawley sent a letter to the head of the FDA calling on him to restore critical safeguards on the use of the abortion medication mifepristone for the health and safety of American women. His support for this was an alarming new study just published by the Ethics and Public Policy Center that found nearly 11% of women, more than 1 in 10 women who use mifepristone, experience sepsis, infection, hemorrhaging, an emergency room visit, or another serious adverse event within 45 days. This rate is at least 22 times greater than the less than 0.5% adverse event rate reported on the FDA-approved drug label. But as investigative reporter Garnet Henderson writes, that study was not published in a peer-reviewed journal. It was posted on the website of the Ethics and Public Policy Center, which is a right-wing think tank on the advisory board for Project 2025, and which is funded and guided by anti-abortion theocrats. They inflated the number of complications found after medical abortions by using insurance data from an unnamed source and counting complications that happened up to a month and a half after the abortion, which means a lot of things that would have absolutely nothing to do with the abortion itself. Henderson further points out that the data also likely include people who had spontaneous miscarriages and may even include people who were prescribed mifepristone for another reason or were prescribed mifepristone and didn't take it. The actual science, of course, shows us that medical abortions are safe. How safe? About 4 times safer than penicillin. Less than 1% of people who get a medical abortion require any follow-up care at all. But unfortunately, the US is now a post-science culture. They're going to just make up whatever data they feel they need to support oppressing us. And all I can do for now is point it out when they do. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you loved the video, please subscribe. And if you think the world could use more videos like this and you happen to have a few bucks laying around, head to patreon.com/Rebecca and join an awesome community of nerds like the people whose names you see on the screen right now. Thanks.